A star, A star, A star, 4 A stars, 5 A stars, English 7 A stars, 7 A stars, where's the maths? 9, 8.
Hey, there's one missing there as well.
8 and there's one at the bottom, geography.
No, they're all his units. Just go over the other side for your English lit. Somewhere, is it? Or the next one?
What's this? I don't understand now.
Have you seen your English lit yet?
Oops,
there.
9.
He's got bloody 9.
He's got 9.
Remember that conversation?
So it's GCSE results day 2020. And let me get the certificates for this year. Here they are. That's they are. That we go. GCSE certificates 2020. Great, everyone's got A's and stars and 9s and 8s, all without sitting a single exam. In fact, this is more valuable than those certificates. What's it called? They used to call it grade inflation, when grades would jump by 2% a year or 1%, 1.5%. This year, guess what they've jumped by? Scotland, 15%. Wales, 14%. Northern Ireland, similar, 13 or 14%. England, 10%. All without sitting a single exam, which makes the certificates less valuable than this, unfortunately, for the students. Look, use your common sense. You don't sit an exam and then you're awarded grades 10%, 15% higher than the previous year. That's grade hyperinflation, not inflation. Hyperinflation without sitting an exam. It would have been bad if they'd sat exams, but without sitting a single exam, the grades are worthless.
Thousands of GCSE students in England, Wales and Northern Ireland received their results today, and with grades set by teachers, there were record pass rates. In England, those getting a grade 4 and above was up by 9%. And those getting the very top grades, that's 7 and above, was up by 25%. In Wales, the number of pupils getting an A to A star rose by 26%. In Northern Ireland too, the number of top grades was up by 5.7% on last year. So, for GCSE students, there's some relief after all the confusion and anxiety over this year's results.
As an employer, if I was looking to hire, so I've got my own limited company, if I was looking to hire someone, I would look at the year of the certificate. If it's 2020 award, then I would not hire that person because the certificate is worthless. Or I would mark it down 1 whole grade at least, maybe 2. So if they got a 9, I'll treat it as a 7. If they got a 6, I'll treat it as a 4. That's what I would probably do. Mark the grades down at least 1 and be very dubious of the students' abilities because the grades are worthless. Your GCSEs are worthless. This has more value than your certificate. I know you're going to use your certificates to get into university and all that, but grade hyperinflation has made them worthless. They're not, employers aren't daft. If you think employers are going to, give you the value that you think you've got, of course the government's been on a money printing hyperinflationary spree since the pandemic. Printed, was it? It's going to print £550 billion. That's going to cause real inflation. Now, I'm not talking about CPI and RPI. They've been so manipulated over the past 50 years that they're worthless. Real inflation, you want to see real inflation? Look at house prices. You want to see real inflation? Look at the shop prices. When you go shopping, go on Amazon and see how much the prices have gone up, 20%. Go to the supermarkets, prices have gone up 12, 13, 14%. That's a high inflation, not hyperinflation, but it's high inflation. And then look at the stock market. How the hell could the stock market rocket higher in a global pandemic depression? It's because of rampant government money printing. The UK is going to print about 550 billion this year, extra. That is a huge sum of money. In comparison, at the worst of the financial crisis, the UK printed about 140 billion. So it's many orders of magnitude greater, and the United States is going to print probably $5 trillion this year. You know, during the financial crisis, they were arguing over a $730 billion bailout. $730 billion, and this is going to be at least $4 trillion, and probably as high as $5 trillion. That's why the likes of Apple have doubled. Amazon's doubled in price, stock price, because of rampant money printing. House prices will go up because of rampant money printing, and grade values will go, and the value of your certificates have gone down. They'll be vintage 2020. They'll be marked. The employers will mark them down at least one grade, maybe more. If I was an employer, someone walked in looking for a job, I would say, sorry. Well, I wouldn't say. I would just mark the grades down, depending on the year. The older the certificate, the more valuable it is. So already employers were adjusting for grade inflation anyway. Like someone who did the certificate 15 years ago walked in, their certificate would have higher value than someone who did it last year. But now, because of the 10 to 15% jump in grades, this year's certificates, GCSE and A-level, are, you know, they're not worth what you think they are. So all these people jumping up and down like lemmings on Twitter, congratulating all the parents. Oh, well done, my darling, you got 9 A stars and 9 A's and all that, 9 9s and all that. No, you didn't. You didn't say a single exam. They should have. Well, the government messed it up. It messed it up because it marked everything down. They messed it down. They engineered it so that the toffs, the private schools, would get good grades, and the state schools, the large in the poor areas, would get crap grades. So they skewed it in their favour of the offspring, the toffs. The politicians skewed it. That's what messed it up. It should have been flat across the board, based on last year. Flat, no. You should be at exactly proportion to last year, the grades for all schools. Instead, they saw far greater markdowns for poorer areas and rich areas, because all the schools wanted to boost their grades. You know, obviously, the UK average has been boosted by 10%. Some schools will have boosted theirs by 20%, I bet. If they're taking just teachers' grades, it's 20% boost. You know, because they want to make the schools look good. But they've not done any work for 6 months. You're not taught a single child, you stupid. I know, it's ridiculous. All these celebrating, all the kids, they've done no bloody exam. And what do you think is going to happen next year to all those who sit their GCSE results in 2021? What do you think is going to happen, Einsteins? They're not at schooling for 6 months. So, what do you think is going to happen? Their grades are going to drop by probably 15%. Imagine the outcry. 15% dropping grades in 2021. That's what's going to happen in England. 15% drop. That's going to make even 2020's results look even more ridiculous. This is the consequence of hyperinflation, grade hyperinflation. Your certificates in 2020 are worthless. Worthless. 10% England grade inflation. There should have been 0. Because you're not even sat any exams. Oh my, this is so ridiculous. You're not sat any exams. And you expect 10% jump in England, 14% in Scotland. What the hell? It's even more worthless. What's going to happen next year? Scotland's going to drop 20%. You know, GCSE results are going to collapse into a black hole abyss. Imagine the depression that the kids are going to have next year. All because of this year's retarded grade hyperinflation caving into the student brigade. All because of they try to doctor the algorithms in favour of the private schools. They should have all been same standard as last year. 0 inflation, Especially since you've not sat an exam next year, there's going to be a catastrophe. There's going to be a 15 to 20% drop in grades next year. None of you are thinking of that, are you? What's going to happen next year when grades drop by 15, 20%? All because you wanted some worthless certificates. All so you can prance around. You got grade 999. All these idiots doing university. Well, university is a bit of a scam. You pay £9,500 for what? Online training because they're too scared to teach. Universities are a bit of a scam. So the students have been hoodwinked by hyperinflation, that the certificates are worth anything when they're not. Also, they can be marched into universities like lemmings to pay £9,500 tuition fees for what? For crap. Most of the courses will be crap. Only the medical and science and computing and engineering courses are value. All the ologies, they're garbage. You're only going to end up working at McDonald's anyway. This just illustrates the point of why governments can get away with printing money, printing certificates, because most people think they are getting something for nothing, i.e. something for free, when the government prints money and hands out, say, 80% of their wages under the job retention scheme. Whoa, we're getting free money, 80% from our salary for doing nothing. No, you're not. That money is being printed, which means it's not backed by economic activity, which means it is worth less than if it had been backed by economic activity. What does that translate into? Higher prices in the shops, because the value of the money falls. The more you print, the more it falls. Same is true with certificates. The more a government prints, i.e. increases the grades, that's the consequence of printing grades, it decreases the value of the certificates. So, grade inflation of 10 to 15% means that the certificates are worth 10 to 15% less, more so because nobody sat exams, so they're worth even less than that. I think the 2020 certificates are worth around 20% less than previous year in the eyes of employers. Similarly, all those going to universities, their degrees will have a content value that is around 10 to 20% less than last year. And that is talking about degrees being more or less worthless. Most degrees, 70% of degrees are not good value for money, worthless. You could do better getting a few good books. All you're doing is paying for the piece of paper that says, say, Warwick University, Sheffield University. That's all you're paying for. You're not paying for the course. You can get it all from a book. In fact, that's what they're probably going to give you, a book. Few crappy lectures that you can get. Better versions of lectures on YouTube these days. You know, there's better lectures on YouTube than you're going to get in a university for free. Go to YouTube, get a few books, and you'll learn more than you will at university without paying a stupid price of £9,500 for salaries of all those who work there on the gravy train, the university gravy train. It's completely ridiculous. This is the consequence of the inflation megatrend. Printing money, printing grades, printing everything that devalues. But most people just don't realise this. They don't realise. They think they're getting something for nothing. In fact, there is never a free lunch. The more you print, the less value something has. If say, I don't know, 60% of students go to university, get a degree, compared to 30% 20 years ago or 30 years ago, then those degrees are worth less, half as much as a degree, because there's twice as many, there's double the supply. People don't understand this. The fundamentals, supply and demand. If you increase the supply, the value goes down. If you don't even sit the exam, then the value of those certificates is substantially less than what it would be if they sat the exam. And then if you, on top of that, you do grade hyperinflation, 15%, then they're worth even less. I'll be not surprised today's certificates are worth about 25% less than last year's in the eye. If there was a market in certificates, right, if you could sell your certificates and your grades, the market price for today's certificates would be, well, it would be less. I would not pay 50%. If there was 2 certificates for sale, 2 GCSEs, say maths, 9 from last year, 9 from this year's would have a market price on, say, eBay of half last year's, because last year's they actually sat an exam. This year did not sit an exam, and worse, grade hyperinflation. The government just devalued the certificates. The least they could have done was try and retain the value of the certificates compared to last year in terms of grade inflation. Instead, they panicked and pressed the hyperinflation button. This is what governments do. Whenever there's a crisis, they print the print money button, the panic button, which is the print money. Print. This is what they did during every crisis. What the consequence is, the Bank of England monetizes the government's debt. Do you know what that means? It conjures money out of thin air to buy government bonds, which drives interest rates down because the supply of new bonds goes straight to the Bank of England. And that artificially depresses interest rates. This is what the government's done to the economy. It's monetized around, I think it'll be approaching £1 trillion now. The Bank of England, by the end of this year, will have monetized £1 trillion of government debt, which will be around 40% of total government debt. That is trending towards hyperinflation. There is consequences to printing money, printing grades, and that is real inflation, not the fake RPI, CPI that they've engineered to give low rates. Real inflation is probably running around 10% now, right now in the shops, 10% per annum. That's what happens when you give people free money, 80% of the salary for doing nothing. A third of the workforce is just being given free money. So I'm afraid the GCSE grade of 2020 is about as valuable as this. In fact, this is more valuable. I think I'm going to need this now. Yeah, I'm going to go and utilize the GCSE, more valuable than GCSE. Yeah, this is what GCSEs are worth in 2020.